Hello, everyone. I am Kate Cuthbert. I am the program manager here at Writers Victoria, and I am here to tell you how to go ahead and use our webinar system. I'm just going to bring myself up on screen. Hi, it's so nice to be here with you this afternoon. Now, you will have received my step-by-step instructions on how to access our webinar system, which I hope that you have accessed, because that would mean that you are here with me this afternoon. I know that our webinar is meant to run for an hour, but I don't expect that it will run quite that long. I'd just like to go through some of the features that you can expect to see on a webinar if you do join one of Writers Victoria's workshop webinars over the course of our program, and give you the confidence to come and join us online whenever you are able. Now, first things first, before we get really into the webinar, the information about the webinar, I want to let you know about the questions function. Now, the vast majority of our webinars run as this one is running right now, in that the presenter is able to speak to you and you are able to see the presenter. But as a participant, your webcam is not turned on, we are not able to see you, and we're also not able to hear you. So if you do have questions, we have a questions function that you are able to use, but those questions have to be written down as opposed to asked out loud. This is not the way that all of our webinars run. If you choose to take part in one of our Refine courses, for example, Refine Your Novel, we just recently ran Refine Your Middle Grade Novel with Ailsa Wild. Part of those courses include webinars, and those are much more interactive. So participants in those webinars share their screens, for example, and everybody is able to talk and converse. But when it comes to strictly informational webinars like the one that we're running right now, the vast majority of the time it will just be the presenter speaking to you, and if you would like to ask a question, we will use the question function down at the bottom. Now, you should be able to see my screen at the same time, but I'm just going to scroll down to, this is part of the PDF document that I sent through to you when I was sending our step-by-step webinar instructions. And I just want to scroll down to this part here where you can see the big circle around your dashboard. So that dashboard down at the very bottom includes the questions section. So if you do have a question at any time during the course of this webinar, or indeed any webinar that you go to in the future, the best way to ask that question is to type it into this question box here. Now, any questions that you ask will go to the staff only. So in this regard, I am the staff and the presenter, but most of the time there'll be a presenter who is presenting the information, as well as a staff member who is there on hand. And the staff member is able to either answer your question for you or forward your question through to the presenter to be asked at an appropriate time when they will stop their presentation. So if you do have any questions at all during the course of this webinar, or even just about Writers Victoria, it's all right, we're spending an hour together, you can ask whatever you like. Please do go ahead and type them into that little question box, and I will from time to time go and take a look at the questions that appear on my dashboard on my screen, and answer them for you as necessary. Now, at the moment, you should be able to see my screen and my face all at the same time. The presenter has the option of doing as I am doing right now, where you're able to see my screen and me at the same time. However, I can also turn off my webcam and you'll no longer be able to see me. You will actually still be able to hear me. Or I can leave my webcam on, hi, there I am again, and turn my screen off so you only get to see me. But when it comes to the presentations that we do, the vast majority of the time, you're going to have a shared screen. Now, most of the time when it comes to this style of presentation, our presenters use PowerPoint slides, much like you would expect in a normal website, or excuse me, a normal webinar. This is a PowerPoint presentation that I presented at our lunchtime bites a few months ago, which was an in-person lunchtime bites called The Power of the Verb. So they'll be able to just scroll through a PowerPoint presentation, much as you would expect to see a PowerPoint presentation scrolled through if you were here in person. And it also gives you the opportunity to the presenter the opportunity to present some information in a way that's not just presenting orally to the screen, but also providing a little bit more information or examples, for example, if they'd like to work through some of the, oops, I forgot that I put this little GIF in here. Enjoy a GIF of lambs dancing while we're talking. And it's a really good way of providing some extra information, providing some examples to illustrate what it is that your presenter is saying as well. So when it comes to the camera, the webcam and the screen, you actually have the ability on your screen to determine which of these two elements is the most prominent on your screen. And you can do that by clicking on the line between them and dragging that line up and down. And that will determine how much of the presenter you see and how much of the screen that you see. And that can make a difference for you depending on whether, for example, you have some vision issues and you'd like to see the words a little bit more clear, or whether you find that you are an auditory learner and you would rather watch your presenter and listen to them that way more attentively than paying attention to the screen that they have as well. I'm just going to switch back to this step-by-step webinar document. I would like to give you the opportunity today, while we're talking about webinars, to come and join us so that you have the opportunity to to see how it works when you're able to join. When you're able to join into a webinar. At the moment, all of our attendees are muted, and I can unmute you or mute you. I have the power to mute you and unmute you at will. Now, as I said, most of the time with our Writers Victoria webinars, you'll be automatically muted when we come in, but I can unmute you, which will give you the opportunity to speak and be heard by your fellow participants. And once you do that, as you can see suddenly around my little box where you can see my face, a green box, a green square came out. That's telling everybody that I'm the primary speaker at the moment, that the voice that you're hearing is coming from me. When you come into sort of a more congenial webinar, or webinar where there's going to be lots of people speaking, that's just a visual cue to let the people that are participating know who it is that's speaking at the moment. Depending on the size of the webinar, it's going to be pretty obvious anyway, but GoTo has just added that little extra bit to let you know. Now, I have unmuted you. Is there anybody who would like to try and say hi?
Hi.
Hi. So this is Helen.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Helen. It's really nice to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's okay.
All right, I'm not going to ask you to turn your webcam on because I didn't tell you that I was going to do that ahead of time, and everybody should be aware if they're going to be on webcam in time to get out of their pajamas.
Just as well, I have wet hair.
So that's what I mean when I say that some of the webinars are a little bit more interactive than others. And it does mean that you are able to actually have a conversation sometimes instead of passively listening to people who are taking part. I'm going to go ahead and mute you again. You also have the ability to mute yourself on your side. As you can see on my screen where I've circled that it says muted, there's a little red microphone in the corner there. That microphone is red at the moment because at the time when I was taking the screenshot, I had muted I had that account muted, but it gives you the opportunity to mute yourself as well if you are part of a conversational webinar, which can be useful, for example, if you have to have a conversation that doesn't belong to that doesn't belong to the webinar. For example, if you have to speak to somebody in your family, if you have to take a phone call. It can also be useful if you have a cough or something where making noise might be distracting to the other participants. As I said, the GoTo box switches to green whenever anybody is making a particular noise. So if you're coughing or having to clear your throat or anything, your box will just keep popping up green every time. So that's another function that you can use for the self-mute button as well. All right, I'm going to mute both of you again and take back the power into my hands. Now, this is basically just a webinar that's designed to make you feel comfortable with using our webinar programming. So I haven't really put together much more of a presentation than the one that I've shown you because I wanted to have lots of time to answer any questions that you had about webinars, and mostly because we were just going to muck about with using the program so that you could be comfortable doing so in the future. If you do have any questions, please feel free to push them through. Otherwise, our webinar doesn't have to be the whole hour, so we can always go, we can always take ourselves an early mark as well. But I do want to be, I'm just going to open up my poems again. I do want to be quite sensitive to the fact that I'm terribly used to using our webinar platform, and that is not true across the board. So please do send through any questions that you might have. In the meantime, I'm going to put up one of my favorite poems here. As writers, you can appreciate the use of a good verb, so I like to pull out this PowerPoint presentation every now and again because I think verbs are vastly underrated as parts of speech, and the right verb can absolutely tighten up your writing at any time. I haven't seen any questions come through. Does that mean that there are no questions? Okay. Well, if there are any questions or if you ever do have any issues, this recording is, or sorry, beg your pardon, this presentation is being recorded. So I will send you through a link to be able to access it at any time. However, I think that the most useful part of it will have been actually logging into the program and seeing what the program looks like when you're actually taking part in it. If you do have any questions at all, you can contact me. So my name is Kate. I am the program manager, and the program manager email is program@writersvictoria.org.au. So that was program@writersvictoria.org.au. Please feel free to send them through to me if you do run into any questions. And thank you so much for spending 15 minutes with me. I hope that you all have lovely days, and I will speak to you soon.